You know how every year booktubers make those lists of the 23 books I want to read in 2023? I think that we have good intentions behind these lists. We make them based off of the books that we are most excited for, books that we feel like we will love. However, looking back at our 23 books I plan to read in 2023, how many of the books do we actually end up reading? In this video, I want to look back at the 23 books I said I was going to read in 2023. I want to audit myself and have a little accountability check with you guys. I want to give credit to another booktuber who I did actually see do this check-in video, and I was really inspired after watching her do it, and that is 𝚲𝚃𝙷𝚃𝙷. I will go ahead and leave Danny's channel linked in the description and her check-in video as well. Without further ado, let's get right into my list and see which books I have read, which books I have not read. Right out of the gate, we are 0 for 1 because I did not read this book. I started this book in January and I put it down and I never picked it back up. This is a book that will go back onto my list for my 24 books I want to read in 2024. I just was not inclined to pick it up this year, and that is very unfortunate, but I know I'm gonna love this book whenever I get to it. It is a guaranteed 5-star read for me, so this one will get read eventually. The next book I put on my list is The Change by Kirsten Miller, and once again, we are now 0 for 2. I also have not read The Change. I do have a physical copy of both They Never Learn and The Change, and I do plan to set a challenge for myself in the new year to attempt to read my physical TBR down to 0. So I know I will 100% be reading both of these books in the new year. Okay, the third book on my list is a very exciting one, and that is Mary by Nat Cassidy. Finally, we have a book that I have read. This was such a good pick for my 23 and 23. The whole point of these lists is I feel like we are trying to pick books that we know we're gonna love, that we think are gonna be favorites, and we just haven't read yet for one reason or another. Mary was definitely one of those books for me. I thought I was going to love it, but I did not anticipate loving it as much as I did. Mary is a book that deeply inspired me. It gave us the superhero that... Spooky. Hi, bringing me your baby? Is she bring your baby? Do you want to come talk about Mary with me? Mary is the superhero character that we have been missing in fiction. The writing in this book is so good. One of my favorite books I read this year, a new all-time favorite. I want everybody to read Mary by Nat Cassidy. Okay, the next book I said I was going to read is stga by 𝚲𝚃𝙷𝚃𝙷. Now we are 2 for 4. This is another one that I have actually read. I really enjoyed this book as well. This one I rated a 4-star, and it is a book that I think you will enjoy if you are looking for a book with very potent atmosphere. If you don't mind a book that is all vibes, no plot. It is a book though that I can see most readers not enjoying just because it is so slow and meandering and it's not really leading to anything. I really enjoyed it. I found the writing and prose to be delicious. It was very witchy. It was almost like dark cottagecore to me. I want more books that fall into the dark cottagecore genre. Like, you know how we've made dark academia a thing? Can we make dark cottagecore a thing? Okay, the next book I put on my list is The Hunger by Alma Katsu. This is another one that I did not get to read. I really want to read this book. I have heard so many good things about this author's writing. This book in particular sounds super interesting to me because I know it is like a retelling of the true story of the Donner Party, which was a party of settlers, I believe, who mysteriously went missing and nobody knows what happened to them. And there is some sort of supernatural element to this book. I also know it has snowy, cold, isolated elements, which I crave in thrillers and horror. I love books that are set in winter and set in like really cold, dreary, snowy settings. The next book on my list is She Started It by Sean Gilbert. And this is the first one I have to talk about that I read. I did read it, okay? But it's one that I really did not enjoy. I personally love thrillers, and I do feel like the genre gets a little bit of a bad reputation because a lot of the thriller genre at this point is oversaturated with very similar stories that fall into two camps. One is the domestic cheating husband and abused wife, a la Gone Girl. And two is the very, very petty group of friends who are all supposed to be friends, but they all treat each other terribly. And all of the drama in the book is just so petty and so annoying. And there's like a murder in the friend group. This book falls into that second camp of thriller. The characters in this book were so unlikable, and again, that's like a trademark of that camp of thriller. Those characters are always meant to be unlikable, so I get it. But reading about these characters and this petty, silly drama that really did not move the plot forward at all, it just felt so boring. I really did not enjoy that book. I only rated it 2 stars. The next one on my list is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This is another book that I did read, and I rated this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed Yellowface. It is a very unhinged book with messy characters. This is a sort of messy characters book that I really liked and got along with and found had depth and substance, whereas the previous book I just talked about, She Started It, is another book that you would call messy characters, but there was no substance, there was no value to it. But Yellowface was very engaging. It's a book that I do not think I will forget anytime soon. The next book on my list is Look Closer by David Ellis. This book is actually one that I started and I DNF'd at the time. I do still have my notes from when I started reading this book, and it looks like I made 2 notes of things I was not enjoying and probably why I DNF'd it. I said, 1, I'm not enjoying the stalker vibes, and the other reason, how much the main character says the name Lauren. So I don't know, it must have been very repetitive, it must have been getting on my nerves. However, I am not DNFing it completely at this point. I just put it down because I wasn't really vibing with it at the time, but I'm gonna try to give this one another chance in the future. The next book on my list is Murder Your Employer, The McMaster's Guide to Homicide by Rupert Holmes. This one's interesting because I actually DNF'd this book twice. I soft DNF'd it at 30% because I just wasn't feeling it, similar to the last one, Look Closer. And I thought maybe it's just the mood I'm in. I want to give this another chance. So I did actually come back to it. I gave it another chance. And then I decided to officially DNF the book at 65%. 65% is a lot of time to give to a book and to end up DNFing it. Like, I couldn't have had that much more time left to go. I was just really bored by this. There's parts and aspects I liked and that I found quirky and original, but the more I read into this book, the harder it became to follow. There were so many rotating POVs. Also, I did not like how the narration would switch from first person to third person, like so abruptly. It was just very jarring reading that. The next book on my list is Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. This is another one that I have not read yet. I know a big part of putting this one off and putting it off and putting it off is because it is a very long book. I also think it is a translated work. I'm just anticipating it being a very dense read. So I'm a little bit scared of it, but I do plan to get to it at some point. It looks interesting. The next book on my list is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is another one that I did not get to in 2023. I also know that this has something to do with see, I don't want to say it because I know it's a spoiler. I know a spoiler about this book, and it's a trope that I really enjoy, so I want to read it for that reason. The next one on my list is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I am counting this one as I have read it. However, I am not done with it yet. I am currently 29% into the book, but I am counting it because I know I will finish this book by the end of November. I am really enjoying this book so far. I am anticipating a 5-star read. However, I am only at 29%, and so there's still a lot to go, so that could definitely change. But so far, I am enjoying it. The writing is really nice, very descriptive horror, which I am really enjoying. The next 3 books on my list I have not read, so I'm gonna run through these pretty quickly. The first one is Satalia by Stephanie Feldman. This one I really don't know anything about. This is almost purely a cover read. I'm just so curious why this woman looks like a carrot, and I need to know, like, what is the symbolism behind this cover. The next book is The Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwent. This is another book that is purely pretty much going to be a cover read for me. I bought the UK edition of this cover because it is probably the most beautiful cover I've ever seen in my entire life, and I wanted it to display it on my bookshelf, but I just haven't read the book yet, and now I'm kind of really apprehensive to read it because if I hate it, then I'm not gonna want to keep the book, and I want to keep it because it is a work of art. The next one is Vita Nostra by Marina and 𝚲𝚃. Another one that I have not read, although I have heard very good things about Vita Nostra from people I know who have read it. It's another one that I do own a physical copy of, so I will definitely be reading this one in 2024. The next 2 books on my list are ones that I have actually read. Those are The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White and The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. I read these both in October for a project I was working on to read Frankenstein for the first time, as well as several Frankenstein retellings, and I had a lot of fun with both of these books. If you want to hear more about them, I highly recommend checking out this video next. The next book on my list is Good Rich People by Eliza Jane Brazier. I did not get to read this book. It is a thriller I am still highly interested in. I feel like it is going to be a thriller that will have very good social commentary in it. The next one is The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. Another book that I know I will love. I love cave horror. Anything that is set in a cave setting, I just have so much fun with it. I find it so interesting. And I definitely plan on doing some sort of reading vlog in 2024, reading all of the cave horror books that I can get my hands on. The next book on my list is The Remaking by Clay McLeod Chapman. This is another book that I have actually read. I just read this book last month and I also really enjoyed this. I think I rated this one a 4-star. I really love this author. I have enjoyed every book I have read from him so far. My favorite has been Ghost Eaters. That is one of my favorite books I've read this year. So I now am basically on a journey to read the rest of his backlist, and I only have one more left. The next book on my list is Have You Seen Her by Catherine Mackenzie. This is a book that I tried to read and I ended up DNFing it at 35%. It's actually set at like a national park like Yosemite, something like that. And I thought the setting was going to lend to make the book more thrilling. I thought it was going to raise the stakes, but I was honestly finding this book so boring. I feel like at 35%, I gave it a fair chance, but it just wasn't doing anything for me. It wasn't bringing anything new. The next book I put on my list is The Whispers by Ashley Audrain. This is a book that I never did end up reading, but I did actually decide to remove this book from my TBR. I originally added The Whispers to my 23 in 23 because I had just recently read The Push by this author, and I really enjoyed Ashley Audrain's writing in The Push, so I was really excited when I seen she had a new release coming out. However, watching a lot of the reviews coming in for this book, it just felt like something that I was not going to enjoy. So in an effort to try to only read books that I think I'm gonna actually like, I decided to just remove that one from my TBR altogether. The final book I put on my list is Mave Fly by 𝚲𝚃. This is a book that I DNF'd at 10%. I know so many people are loving this book. It is one of their favorite books they've read of the year. And it is kind of giving me FOMO hearing people say that they loved it that much. But I'm trying to trust my initial instincts and not read books just because everybody else is reading them. I gave this book a chance, and at 10% in, I could tell that it just was not the kind of writing that I enjoy. It wasn't doing it for me, so I kind of had to get out of that one. It is now time to see how many books did I read out of the 23 that I put on my list. I read a total of 13 of these books out of the total 23. That means I read 57% of these books that I had anticipated myself reading in the year of 2023. Is that a good amount? Yeah, that's a great amount. It's more than half. I mean, there's no grading system. There's not a test. There's no like weight into did I do it or not. It's just something fun to see. Did I read the books I said I was going to? I just think it is very fun to track my reading. I am a person who really loves the stats and making a goal and measuring my way to the goal. I am a very goal-driven, goal-oriented person. It's fun to see if I can achieve the plans that I set out for myself. If you guys are interested in seeing some more of my reading stats and how I have been doing meeting some of my reading goals for the year, I would recommend you check out this video next. In this video, I go over all of the books that I read in Q3 of this year, and I go into a ton of my stats and averages of the books that I read for the entire year. But other than that, it is about 10 p.m. We are filming this video last minute. It's past his bedtime. No, don't leave. If you made it to the end of this video, leave me a little sleeping man emoji, and we will see you in the next video.